This is a third of a 5-episode series called Ravan series regarding the prevalent misconceptions about Ravan by me, Neena Rai, the author of Amazing Ayodhya, the splendid ancient city of Lord Ram. The word serial is added to killers, abductors, and rapists when their count exceeds more than 3 victims. These victims could be known or unknown to the perpetrator. Even though it is only in the modern era that such terminology is in practice, this is not a new phenomenon. This phenomenon has been documented in the Valmiki Ramayana, and the perpetrator was Ravana himself, the king of Lanka and the sovereign of Rakshasas. The victims of Ravana exceeded 1,000 women. In the previous 2 episodes, we have spoken about 2 victims of Ravana, namely Sita Mata and Punjikasthala. Both these ladies were famous, talented, and beautiful. Sita ji was the daughter of Maharaja Janaka of Mithila. She had been abducted, and Punjikasthala was an apsara, a celestial nymph who had been raped by Ravana. Repulsed by his superficial charm and lust, he was loathed by both the ladies. He was hated by them. It is stated in the Ramayana that the women he targeted were young unmarried daughters of Rajarshis, Brahmarshis, Gandharvas, and Rakshasas themselves. Each of their fathers was a prominent person in his society, in his realm, and he held the position of either a king or a head of a race, a spiritual or a learned master. He would target their daughters for his love of war and to establish his dominance over them. Ordinarily, fathers were subdued through war and destruction, where the daughter was abducted as a trophy. Sometimes the daughter was abducted to weaken the father and to force his hand into war. Ravana abducted Sita for the latter reason, as she was the life of Bhagwan Ram, and he knew for sure that he could break a powerful man by targeting what was most valuable to him. And in this case, Sita ji is most valuable and precious to Bhagwan Ram. It should therefore come as no surprise how the term Rakshas Vivah has come about, and why in Hindi and Sanskrit it denotes a marriage by abduction. It was the habit of Rakshasas to engage in such acts, and their sovereign Ravana was an expert at it. Rakshas Vivah is looked down upon in Hindu society, but since it happened in real life and some women chose to stay with their abductors, there was no choice but to accept it as a valid form of marriage in ancient times. A lot of women also did not have any recourse to being rescued, as their fathers were not as powerful as the Rakshasas, especially their king Ravana. Each of these abducted women lived with Ravana in his palace. In Sarg 9 of Sundarkand, it is Hanumanji who narrates the scene of Ravana sleeping in the inner chambers of his palace with all 1,000 women. Hanumanji enters Lanka with the purpose of finding Devi Sita in Ravana's palace, and Ravana's palace is an obvious place to keep her captive. Therefore, he goes and searches the inner chambers. The corresponding shlok in the Valmiki Ramayana is given as Tato apashyat kutha asinam nana varn ambar srajam sahastram var narinam nana vesh bhushitam. In English, this shlok translates to, thereafter Hanuman saw 1,000 of best women in garlands and clothes of various colors, adorned in a variety of attire. The word sahastra means 1,000. Surprisingly, the Valmiki Ramayana also mentions that Ravan's wives were happy with him. Since the Valmiki Ramayana gives us a 360-degree idea about Ravan, which includes his good, bad, and abominable characteristics, it reveals that most of the abducted women had been seduced by him post their abduction, while several others, overcome with their own sexual longing, willingly gave themselves to him. This may come as a surprise to viewers. How could these women be seduced and charmed? But the reasons are many. Ravan seemed invincible, a mighty ruler who not only had a formidable army, but was also physically very powerful. Secondly, he was famous for his sexual prowess. Thirdly, with his immense wealth, he could offer anything that his wives desired. Besides, these young girls wouldn't have any idea of what a normal life with a man outside their captivity would be. So they had no clue. They could have never measured Ravan against any other standard. Combining these factors with his famous lineage, his confidence and aggressive nature naturally made him attractive to a lot of women. Furthermore, attraction can also be understood through modern day documented psychological diagnoses like the Stockholm Syndrome. Persons suffering from Stockholm Syndrome develop a type of a coping mechanism to a captive or an abusive situation. And over a period of time, the victims themselves develop positive feelings towards their captors or abusers. This condition is not only observed in abductor-abductee relationships, like that of Ravan that we are discussing and of the girls we are discussing that he abducted, but also in relationships of coach and athlete, child sexual abuse, incest, sex trafficking, and relationship abuse cases. Moreover, it has also been observed by psychiatrists that many women find psychopaths attractive. Clinical psychologist Seth Meyers, in an article in Psychology Today titled Sex and the Psychopath, says, some of the women I have worked with who have gotten involved with psychopaths actually share how amazing sex can be with them. While Ravan is not alive to be actively diagnosed by a psychologist, but present-day psychoanalysis on his behavioral traits, as mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana, points towards him being a psychopath. Psychopaths have very typical characteristic traits like superficial charm, high intelligence combined with poor judgment, pathological egocentricity, promiscuous sexual behavior, a lack of remorse and shame, and a grandiose sense of self-worth and impulsivity. They exhibit a diversity of criminal behaviors with added traits of fearlessness, boldness, and invulnerability. Apart from abducting 1,000 maidens and raping apsara Punjikasthala, Ravan also raped apsara Rambha. He attempted to rape Vedvati, the daughter of Ramrishi Kushadhwaj, but she killed herself before he could be successful. There are numerous other stories about Ravan and his exploits in different texts which recount him misbehaving, molesting, raping other prominent ladies like Madana Manjari, Swaha Devi and Sulekha Devi. Their stories are not elaborately mentioned in the Ramayana as they occurred in different yugas. The reason why the story of Vedvati ji is told in the Ramayana is because she is supposed to have reincarnated as Sita Mata herself. Rambha, on the other hand, is akin to Ravan's own daughter-in-law because she is in a relationship with Nal Kubar, the son of Ravan's stepbrother Kuber. Kuber had earlier been defeated by Ravan, and it was Kuber's Pushpak Viman which was stolen by Ravan as well. The plight of Rambha denotes that in front of Ravan's lust, no relationship had meaning. Neither were its boundaries respected. The story of Rambha and Vedvati are mentioned in the Uttarkand of the Valmiki Ramayana. Many historians and researchers do not accept the Uttarkand as having been composed by Maharshi Valmiki and therefore not being part of the original Ramayana itself. Even if we discount the stories of Uttarkand and let's say all other texts, there is no doubt about Ravan's psychopathic and criminal behavior. The rape of Punjikasthala, the abduction of 1,000 maidens made him a rapist and a serial abductor many times over. In today's day and age, Ravan's actions would be considered heinous crimes worthy of rigorous imprisonment for an extensive number of years. Jayatu Jayatu Ram, Jayatu Jayatu Dharma. This was the third of the 5-episode series. In the next episode of Ravan series, we will discover what is that made him mighty and invincible. We will find out the extent of Ravan's might as a sovereign, because of which neither Brahmarshis, Rajarshis, Gandharva, nor Rakshasas could fight to protect their own daughters. Please stay tuned for the 4th episode, like and share this video, and subscribe to this channel. Jai Shri Ram.